I'm opening the regular meeting for Chico Unified School District on February 15th. The board will be going into closed session. I'm asking if there's anyone that would like to comment on closed session before we go in to the meeting. Seeing none, we'll be back at 6 o'clock.
All right, I will call the meeting back to order in open session. The board was in closed session. In closed session, the board took action. The CUSD Board of Education voted in closed session to approve Resolution 1598-23, 5-0, authorizing the dismissal of a certificated employee. We'll move on to item 3.3, which is the flag salute. Please stand for the flag salute. Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have to apologize to the crowd in advance. You can hear that my voice is not quite well. So bear with me as I project as best as I can with a mask on, keeping you all safe from hopefully nothing bad that I have. Just a little cold. Gotta love daycare age, right? Okay, so we're gonna move on to item 4, which is student reports. Superintendent Staley.
Thank you. Well, we have a treat again tonight. I'm very proud to introduce Principal Kelly Steinbach and her students from Neal Dow Elementary, who are going to talk about kindness.
Good evening, members of the board. We are so privileged to be here this evening presenting to you our Neal Dow Leadership 2023. I have with me our school counselor, Jacqueline Russo, who is the leadership leader. So I'm turning it over to her.
Hi, thank you guys for having us. Yeah, we're here to just talk about February and all the cool things we're doing for Kindness Month. So I'm going to have one of our students, Logan, come and tell you what we're doing.
We are singing a song that's for Kindness Month, and we are going to be having an assembly about kindness, and we will be doing a skit called One.
And here's that song.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you to our Neil Dow students. At this point, I'd like to invite up Tiffany Herringer. This happens to be CTE month, and she is going to give us a brief overview.
Thank you. I have flyers to. Hi, good evening. So my name is Tiffany Herringer, and I'm serving as the district's Career Technical Education Coordinator. I come to you tonight to the board meeting to announce that February is National CTE Month. As you all know, in our district, we have a very robust CTE program comprised of 23 pathways between Chico High School and Pleasant Valley High School in 9 different industry sectors. And we have plans to add more within the next couple of years as well. CTE provides students with hands-on learning and training in high-wage, high-demand industries so that students can leave both college and career prepared. Some of the highlights I want to bring to you tonight are the following. So first, within the last few years, we have been able to modernize and update 7 of our CTE facilities to make them state-of-the-art and up to industry standards. We've been able to do this with the support of state and federal grants and local bond measures. So they really are amazing facilities what have been updated. The second thing that we've been able to do is increase options for students to earn post-secondary credits through high school courses. We have 10 dual enrolled courses that are CTE, and we have 18 articulated courses. Within these two options, we have had students that have earned many different college credits. Just last year, 300 of our students earned college credit through dual enrollment, and an additional 300 students earned college credits through articulation. So this is free college credits to our students while taking their high school class. So it's an amazing opportunity, and again, we have plans to increase those numbers as well. A total of 400 students earned industry certifications in 7 different certificates last year, and that's an industry certification they can take to their future career. In partnership with Butte County Office of Education, we've implemented career exploration modules at 2 of our middle schools so that all 8th graders have career exploration across the board. So they're able to explore careers before they get to high school. With the expansion of the block schedule, we were able to add 60 sections of CTE in the last 2 years, nearly doubling our enrollment in CTE courses. With that, we were able to add 6 new teachers to our CTE group, 2 of those being employees that we already had that got their designated credential, and 4 additional new hires. And then in the last school year, we had 77 students compete in their career technical student organization at the state level. These are students that made it through the regional and the sectional levels and went on to compete at state. Within those 77 students, we had 2 gold medal winners, we had 3 silver medal winners, we had 2 bronze medal winners, and then 12 additional groups that placed in the top 10 in their state competition. 2 of those groups went on to the national competition, and 1 of those groups took 3rd in the nation in video production. So it was a very successful year in CTE. All of these accomplishments are possible because of the amazing and passionate teachers that we have that are spearheading our CTE programs. CUSD has become a flagship in CTE because of the dedication these teachers have for their students' success. So thank you for your ongoing support of our CTE programs.
Thank you, Tiffany, and all of our CTE teachers and students. So at this point, I would like to call up Courtney Conley, who's going to tell us a little bit about what's happening at Emma Wilson Elementary School.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be back here again, being able to present this award to Shannon Hurd. Shannon did not know we were coming for this purpose, but I wanted to make sure I could get her here. and celebrate her. Shannon has been at Emma Wilson for many years. She does lead an amazing team of people who help the school run smoothly. They help students make good choices. And in general, they help Emma Wilson be a fun and safe place to be. I'll do my best to keep my composure on this because this was a pretty emotional experience for us. Most of our days, we are super busy running around doing really important things. But recently, Shannon did something that really put things in perspective. Shannon saved a student's life. From across the cafeteria, Shannon saw a student who was struggling, and she saw a student next to him who was just in sheer panic and didn't know what to do. She immediately ran over, checked in with the student, realized that he was not breathing, and she began assessing the situation and performing the abdominal thrust or Heimlich maneuver. The entire situation lasted about 40 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. This was an experience that watching it happen and watching how quickly Shannon reacted and how well she communicated with the student as he was unable to really communicate with her, it was really, really super admirable. Once the food that he was choking on finally dislodged, he was able to breathe, and Shannon stayed with him, making sure he was okay. The student is safe and happily back at school. And many students have had the opportunity to thank Shannon for her brave, heroic act, and many staff members, but I'm really happy to be able to be here tonight to share with you the fact that she did something that not all of us get an opportunity to do in our lifetime, but also having the bravery to do that act was, it was just really something to see. So all of us in schools every day help children to be safe and enjoy learning and to have fun. But on that day, Shannon went above and beyond, and she did something much bigger. So Shannon, we all want to thank you for paying attention to the important things, the things that really matter, and being aware and responsive enough to perform such a brave act. We appreciate you. I usually close my eyes during these pictures. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Here for Shannon. Thank you. Proud of you.
I agree. What a story. Thank you. I'd now like to call up Emily Mullins, who's going to talk a little bit about Hooker Oak.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here as always, especially when I get to present an award to one of my outstanding employees. So at this time, I would like to call her up so that she can be properly embarrassed. Mary Hostick, please come on up. It is my absolute honor and privilege to recognize this amazing CUSD employee. Mary Hostick is the senior custodian at Hooker Oak Elementary School. She's without a doubt one of the best employees that we have. She's friendly, hardworking, professional, and is always there to do whatever it is that is needed to keep our school running smoothly. Some of those things, as you can imagine, are not very pleasant. Cleaning up puke, mopping up spills, for example. But she always performs these tasks with a smile on her face. I learned early on in my career that the two of the most important people in a school are the custodian and the office manager. Now, that is certainly not to say that every staff member is not important, but if the folks that you have in those two positions are highly qualified, then you can bet that your school is going to run smoothly. This is certainly true at Hooker Oak. Having Mary on our team really does make our school run smoothly. Mary, our entire staff is so grateful for you and so excited for you to receive this well-deserved award. Here are some statements that our staff sent in. This is from Beth Geisey. Mary is kind, dedicated, and she sincerely cares about keeping Hooker Oak clean and tidy. She goes above and beyond in all areas of our campus. From Jess, Mary, you are amazing. You are always so kind and helpful. The students adore you, and we appreciate everything that you do here. You have an amazing work ethic, and you are very deserving of this award. From Mrs. Friend, Mary does a fabulous job cleaning up our rooms. She's always willing to go the extra mile, setting up tables for projects, pulling out chairs for parents to enjoy performance. Our school would not be what it is without Mary caring so much. And from Katie Yancey, Mary is always willing to help. It doesn't matter what the situation is or when it is not or when it is happening. If she can help, she will. What I appreciate about Mary is that she truly does what she can to help the students and staff have the best campus that we can have. She goes above and beyond to keep our school looking great. She is also the best at hearing my cries for help and helping me clean up my accidents. I am notorious for locking myself out of my classroom, and Mary is always there to save me. If something doesn't look good or got forgotten in my room the night before, Mary is always able to take care of it before the start of the new school day. We are so lucky to have her. And from your boss, Dusty, Mary is great as a senior custodian and is an awesome person as well. We are so happy she's getting this award. CUSD is so lucky to have such an amazing employee in Mary Hostick. I'm beyond blessed that we get to call her our own at Hooker Oak. Congratulations, Mary, and thank you for all that you do.
Hear it from Mary. And I will turn it back over to you, Madam President.
Alrighty, thank you. All right, so up next we have item 6, announcements. Are there announcements that any members of the board would like to speak? No. I have announcement. We are excited to have Fulbright Teaching Excellence and Achievement Program from California State University Chico here tonight. Heather Hacking is the program manager here to introduce the educators.
Thank you. These are our Fulbright Teaching Excellence and Achievement teachers. We have 18 of them, and I won't give you the names of their countries because we'd like to have them introduce themselves. They are here for 6 weeks, attending workshops at Chico State, and next week we start a mentor teacher program at 4 schools, Chico High School, Pleasant Valley High School, Marsh Junior, and Bidwell Junior. So they'll be there for 6 days. And this is Gulnara from Azerbaijan.
Hi, I am Gulnara Husseinova from Azerbaijan. I would like to share our amazing impressions on behalf of my dear fellows. We feel very appreciated, more confident here because we learned innovative methodologies, how to manage the classroom, how to use IT tools in our classroom, and American culture, a lot of information about American cultures, and etc. But I want to focus on the most valuable thing that this program provides us cultural diversity. We feel like we are the world in the same classroom. Like Michael Jackson's songs, we are the world. Yes, because we share our cultural informations, and we don't only know where is our country is situated. We know that what challenges we face and how to solve these challenges, and we exchange our experiences. And that's very great and great things for us actually. And I want, not only I, all of us want to thank you, State Department of Education, IREX, and of course the Chico. I want to say that Chico, California State University, Chico, not only opened their doors to the participant of Fulbright Tea program, they opened their hearts to us. And we feel we are at home, and thank you for them, and thank you for special thanks, Dr. Zartman, and our dear Heather and Terry and all staff. Thank you so much. And I want to say that thank you for your contribution to our future career. And me and my dear colleagues can't wait to how we will apply all these new methodologies in our classroom. Thank you so much.
So now, if the participants can just come up and state their name and their country really quickly. Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Helena Skripnichenko from Latvia. It's a Baltic country in the Eastern Europe, and we are part of the European Union.
Good evening. My name is Tanja. I'm from Ecuador. It's located in South America.
My name is Catherine Joe from Tanzania. I'm so happy to be here.
Hello, I'm Iskandar. I'm from Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Umide Sabirova. I'm also from Uzbekistan. Actually, Westry from Uzbekistan here.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Victor. I'm from Peru. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Oygul. I'm also from Uzbekistan, which is situated in Central Asia.
Hi, my name is Muhammad. I'm from Sudan. I'm very happy to see you.
Good evening. My name is Asil. I am from Kyrgyzstan. It's in Central Asia. Thank you.
Good evening, all. My name is Masbulele from South Africa. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marie Banse from Burkina Faso. It's in West Africa. It's a honor to be here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Ruffello. I'm from Haiti. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lyudmila. I'm from Ukraine, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Natalia Ostrovska. I'm from Belarus. It's situated in Eastern Europe. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Panya from Cambodia, and I'm glad to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eden Law from Malaysia, which is in the region of Southeast Asia.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ray. I am from Panama. Thank you for having us.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you for thank you for being here and seeing how all of our democratic process all plays out as well. It's a good night to be part of the school board meeting. All right, let's see. If there's no other announcements, we'll move on to items from the floor. Items from the floor are for speakers who wish to address the board regarding a topic that is not currently agendized. So for topics that are not on tonight's agenda, this is a time for the public to speak. We have received speaker cards for those who wish to address the board regarding parental rights as it pertains to confidential student matters. This topic is on the agenda for agenda item 9.2.2. However, at this time, we will take public comment from speakers who wish to address the board for topics not agendized on this meeting. As a reminder, speakers have 3 minutes to address the board. The board can listen to public comment, cannot respond to any speakers under items from the floor because it's not agendized. And so I will start at the top of our list. Up first, we have Joanna Campos.
Good evening, board members. My name is Joanna Campos. I'm a Rosedale parent. I earned a master's degree in education from Chico State, and I hold a preliminary administrative credential from the state of California. There are students and parents at my children's school that are part of the LGBTQ community, and administrators, teachers, and staff in our district that belong to this community. Today, I speak out of love and care for them. In teacher credentialing programs across the country, educators study Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the most known theories used to explain human motivation. This theory states that people can only achieve the full realization of their potential once their physiological and psychological needs are met. Educational leaders and psychologists agree that students can only learn if they feel safe and loved. Tragically, there is overwhelming evidence that many students who identify as LGBTQ feel neither safe nor loved. According to the Trevor Project, LGBTQ youth in the USA, suicide is the second leading cause of death for young people between the ages of 10 and 24, and rates for LGBTQ youth are 4 times higher than their peers. In other words, students in 4th grade through high school are dying because they do not feel safe or loved in their home or in their school community. While what happens in a student's home is largely outside of the control of school leadership, there are important things we can do to ensure that LGBTQ students feel safe and loved in our Chico schools. Did you know that having at least one accepting adult can reduce the risk of a suicide attempt among LGBTQ youth by 40%. One significant thing we can do is to hire more qualified LGBTQ affirming counselors so that our students can have access to their support with more frequency. Another step we can take is to be unapologetic about protecting educators who are creating affirming spaces. Teachers in California have policies in place that protect their right to read books that center LGBTQ characters and their families and to exhibit symbols of love and support for LGBTQ families in their classrooms. When school leaders allow educators to affirm and celebrate certain groups but discourage the celebration of other groups, it is discrimination by exclusion and it is illegal. LGBTQ teachers who are loved and supported teach more effectively. LGBTQ students who are loved and supported learn more readily, and LGBTQ families who are loved and supported engage more authentically with their school. School boards and administrative teams that work together to protect LGBTQ students by boldly reinforcing existing policies and protecting counselors, teachers, and administrators that are creating affirming spaces for their students are not only fulfilling their job requirement to ensure equal access to education for all, but they are also saving lives. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I did actually forget to mention that I did say there's a 3-minute time limit, but there's a 30-second bell for the rest of the speakers. I forgot to give that. Thank you. I forgot to give that for anybody who's a new speaker tonight. That's how that goes. So we set the 3 minutes, 30 seconds, you hear a bell. That means you have 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts. Up next, we have Dr. Christine Leisner.
Board Policy 5143 currently follows California State Law AB 1226 that protects transgender youth, LGBTQ youth, non-white youth, youth with disabilities, among other children from discrimination at school. I'm a human sexuality researcher and educator in the Department of Public Health at Chico State, and I serve on the executive board for the Society for the Scientific Study of Sexuality, which is an internationally recognized academic and professional organization. As an expert in this area, I can tell you that these laws are evidence-based and changing them would be detrimental to our students. The Trevor Project conducts high-quality research among LGBTQ youth across the nation. The most recent 2022 national survey on LGBTQ youth mental health included 34,000 youth ages 13 to 24 across the United States. Findings indicated that 45% of LGBT youth have seriously considered suicide in the past year. Nearly 1 in 5 transgender and non-binary youth attempted suicide. Fewer than 33% of transgender youth found their home to be gender affirming. Among Chico Unified, we have publicly available data from California Healthy Kids Survey 2021 that indicates grades 7, 9, and 11, 20% of students report experiencing school-based violence. 30% of girls report experiencing harassment or bullying at school. 17 to 23% of students, depending on the grade, report experiencing harassment that was specifically focused on their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or disability. This is data from our district, indicating that these anti-discrimination laws are vital and more should be done for these kids. The report from the Trevor Project also shows that when LGBTQ youth find their school to be affirming of their sexual orientation, they have lower rates of attempted suicide. Additionally, when these youth report living in a community that is accepting of LGBTQ people, they have significantly lower rates of attempting suicide when compared to youth that don't have supportive communities. I hope all board members understand that these youth experience mental health disparities because of non-supportive school, home, and community environments. That is what the research shows. Imagine being in a place where people other you, bully you, harass you, and isolate you due to a part of your identity that you cannot change. We can do something about this by upholding Board Policy 5143 and going further to strategically strengthen our efforts to support these kids. We should have a zero tolerance policy against harassment for any reason against any kid. School should be a place that is safe for our kids to walk around in their authentic selves without victimization of violence. Keeping our kids safe is one of the most important purposes of serving on the school board.
Next, we have James Bishop.
Hello again. So I just want to give some context for some of the discussion on gender and parents and stuff. My passion is really just for people to know what's going on. I kind of trust that. If that's happening, I trust it. I am willing to accept policy decisions that I might not even agree with, you know, based on different points of view, if it's rooted in facts. I believe there are good-hearted people speaking and acting out of ignorance, and that's what really energizes me. I want to emphasize something. You can learn everything you need to know about these issues related to gender without listening to any conservative voices. In fact, you can listen exclusively to demonstrated advocates of and allies of lesbians, gays, and trans people. People like Sasha Ayad and Stella O'Malley, who run a podcast called Gender: A Wider Lens. Okay, so Sasha, before she started her clinical practice, was a middle school teacher that started their first gay-straight alliance. Stella struggled with gender dysphoria her entire life. Or Jamie Reed, she was a clinical research coordinator at Washington University in St. Louis Children's Hospital. She described herself as a queer woman and politically to the left of Bernie Sanders, and married to a trans man. Jamie corroborated a lot of concerns that people have right now in a recent article on Barry Weiss' Substack. Barry Weiss, also a woman who's married to a lesbian woman. Rose is an anonymous name, describes herself as a queer social justice organizer on the forefront of intersectionality movement. She's a married lesbian with 2 male children. She transitioned her first, or they did transition their first child, but then began to have doubts about transitioning their second. Rose described this on a podcast called Trigonometry, and it's really fascinating. She gives kind of an insider perspective, someone who was in that community and when they started to raise questions encountered what she describes as religious dogma. So you can disagree with these people, but you cannot call them transphobes and ignore what they have to say. Finally, I want to really highlight Abigail Schreier, who wrote the Irreversible Damage book some of you may have probably heard of. This book is wall-to-wall people on the left. The author, Abigail Schreier, is from a New York Jewish family. She went to Columbia, then she went on to an honors degree at Oxford, then got her law degree at Yale, worked at a killer law firm for several years. Then she started to have children, writing for the New York Times. That's when she was approached about, could you investigate what is going on with this rapid rise, especially among girls, of this rapid onset gender dysphoria that's occurring in social groups, you know, that didn't fit with the traditional patterns. And she looked around for someone else to do it and eventually gave up and did it herself. And the book is just fantastic. And honestly, if anybody who will read that book, I would love to just listen to you and talk to you. But I really want to see people having this kind of information.
Thank you.
That book, in
that's
fact,
the end of your time. Thank you. Up next, we have Bill Donovan.
Yeah, hi, I'm a grandfather. I've got a couple of granddaughters that go to these schools, And I don't think it's the place of the schools to be getting involved in this stuff. This is the parents. They're the best suited to take care of their children, not you people. Teach them the basics and stay out of their lives.
Nicole Nava.
Good evening. Something that I figured I would hear tonight were some of the comments that I want to point out that as a parent is very distressing, that there is this huge assumption that parents don't show love and acceptance and support. At what point has that even been acknowledged? The problem with some of these local clubs that have some people that are not trained and other people that are trained are that leaping assumption. And what ends up happening is they transfer that feeling and fervor and passion that they believe is coming from a good place. But what it does is it isolates those children from their families. They're not even given the opportunity to react or behave in any way because everything's kept secret from them. And I find that very distressing. I think what you need to understand is back in the day, when we had education here, you have a fantastic school district. I received a stellar experience where we did discuss things that pertain to diversity and inclusion and all of that. We had very intensive simulations that we did that were based on Civil War era times, based on Pioneer Days, based on the Holocaust, and you would play different roles, and then partway through the day you would switch. And I cannot tell you how impactful that is. But what people didn't do is insert social engineering into those simulations. They were very basic instruction in history and what can happen. And just the simulation itself was so powerful for children that you get it. You don't want things that have happened to happen again. You do appreciate people of any color and any belief. And I want to say, like we say our Pledge of Allegiance, there's people that believe in God, and that didn't used to offend people. It was okay, and we were accepting, and people just didn't take part if they didn't feel comfortable. It is, to me, distressing that the parents are being taken out of the equation. We love our children. Legal guardians love their children. People have big hearts. Let them have those. They are the ultimate authority on their children. You do not have the psychiatrists and the other people working for you that are equipped to deal with things, and children are evolving beings. And you need to let them evolve. You need to let them move in and out of spaces that maybe now they feel this way, maybe then they don't, and then maybe they land up feeling a different way. That's okay. We will take care of that. We will love and support them. We have big families and small families. Give those families a chance to do what they do best. These are our children. Please let them be.
Thank you. Sasha Anya.
Recent events, both locally and nationally, brought me here. Many are aware of the professor at Chico State who said he was going to shoot people. The Chico State administration failed to follow the law to notify the authorities, and they failed to warn anyone. So now there are resignations. There was a 6-year-old who shot his teacher in Virginia. We learned that several administrators had been notified and that the student was threatening to shoot people, and each administrator failed to respond. It took that school board only minutes to remove all of them. 7 police officers have been fired over the senseless killing of Tyre Nichols, and yet not all of them participated in the beating. Some just stood by and did nothing. Failure to act. Are our school officials doing the same? I watched a video of retired Chico principal who recently came before this board and showed you school district documents of current sitting Chico Unified superintendent and a board member writing and circulating plans, get this, for a mass shooting in our community. And these plans specifically name the initial target. You didn't stop the meeting like common sense would have dictated. Did anyone respond? Were the individuals involved fired or suspended? No, they were not. They are sitting with us here tonight. If students acted this way, they would have been immediately suspended, right? Of course they would. I took the time to verify alarming documents myself, and many include reprehensible misconduct of city staff, complicity in criminal misconduct, erasing official documents from the city server, receiving under-the-table payments. Again, did anyone respond? No. The city of Memphis is now investigating its own officers. The Virginia school where the teacher was shot has acknowledged its complicity in mishandling of the gun threat. Gail Hutchison at Chico State has done the same here. I asked this board for similar transparency. If you never followed up on what was presented to you, I ask for your honesty. Virginia, Memphis, Chico State have all acknowledged their misconduct in not preventing tragic events. It should have taken you 2 seconds to follow safety protocol. The public has a right to know that your response wasn't the same reckless indifference as Virginia school officials. I ask for an agenda item at the next meeting so we can all hear what is being done for zero tolerance of school violence. What is going on and what is happening? Thank you. Oh, do I have 30 seconds? I would like to also say that I read the Abigail Schreier book that was just mentioned, mind-blowing, the amount of talking parents into to believing that their kids are at a very high risk of suicide. The data is completely unsupported. It's very new, and it's just very reckless for doctors to be scaring the hell out of parents and saying, if your kid isn't getting all this stuff, they're
Thank you.
at
That's the
risk
end
of
of your time.
suicide. Thank you.
Kelly Bishop.
Hello, my name's Kelly Bishop. I'm a community member and concerned parent. I also wanted to put in a recommendation that everyone should read Abigail Schreier's book, which was meticulously researched based on countless interviews with gender specialists and everyone across the board, and just give a really brief overview of what seems to be happening with particularly the rapid onset gender dysphoria. First, we see a proactive effort to raise questions in the minds of children at a vulnerable time, especially girls. I think we can all agree that a huge proportion of girls feel deeply insecure about their changing bodies. And now, from online influences to school curriculums they're being offered, transition as an answer. Second, we have an affirmative approach that steers these questions towards one answer, transition, and away from others, perhaps late onset autistic diagnosis, other depression issues. Then there's immediate on-ramp to irreversible and grave medical treatments with no practical regulation or oversight. Then the system of incentives, social incentives, legal, financial, to reward those who support these systems and punish those who resist or question schools, counseling service, medical facilities. And finally, in the guise of protecting privacy and non-discrimination, we have created a mechanism for isolating children from their families during this high-stakes process. And on this last point, for those who think this maybe isn't happening in California, recently, a teacher, Jessica Tapia, was fired from Jurupa Unified School District. A letter signed by the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Daniel Brook, explained, quote, "Based on your religious beliefs, you cannot be dishonest with parents. If asked about a student's gender identity by a parent, you cannot refer the parent to a counselor, defer inquiry, and suggest they speak to the student, or otherwise deflect the inquiry. Consequentially, the district will release you from your employment, effective at the end of the day on January 31st, 2023, end quote. However, in a statement to news agencies, the district stated, the district denies the allegations raised by Ms. Tapia, and the district takes seriously its obligation to accommodate its employees' religious beliefs, end quote. So how are parents supposed to trust the claims that schools are not keeping mental health information from parents, including Chico's parents? Thank you.
We're going to move on to consent calendar, item 8. We have one public comment on consent calendar at this time. So I'm in order, right? Okay, sorry, it's not common to have a public comment on consent, so I'm just double checking. So we have Sabrina Marquez signed up for speaking on the consent calendar. Okay. If there is anybody on the board who would like to pull an item from consent for further discussion? All right. Okay, well, I then will ask for a motion on consent.
So moved. I move the consent calendar.
I'll second that motion and just comment that I'm just so thrilled at all the wonderful things represented in the consent calendar that our kids are going to be able to experience over the next quarter, and the updates in classes and things that are directed at making our CTE programs and others not only more accessible but more meaningful to our students.
Thanks for saying that, Eileen, and I would, excuse me. I want to add to that comment about CTE. There was some public comments that came in about two particular items about changing over to an ag CTE program at PV. And I would just encourage those that might have concerns to reach out to the school to talk about how that partnership's going to continue and remain strong and robust. If there's anything else to say about that, I'd be happy to hear any other comments about that. Or any other comments on consent. Lots of field trips coming up. It's good stuff. All right, we're going to do a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Lando.
Lando, aye.
Tennis, aye.
Dalby, aye.
Robinson, aye.
Conkin, aye.
All right, it passes. We'll move on to our discussion action calendar. We are on lots of pages later. 9.1.1, we're in Human Resources Discussion Action, Resolution number 1597-23, release or non-reelection of temporary, including probationary 0 certificated employees. I will pass it over to Jim. Mr. Hanlon.
Okay, thank you. I'm bringing you this resolution annually during this time of year. We have a March 15th notification date required by Education Code, and these have to be hand-delivered and personally met with each staff member. So by approving these notices tonight, that gives us ample time to do that. As you can see, there's a large number for a few reasons. We have a lot of folks out on leave of absences and that will be returning. And then we also have an unusually large number of Probe 0 positions that were funded by ESSER dollars that will not be renewed. So that counts for the large number this year. Any questions?
All right, so seeing no questions from the board for clarification, I will ask for public comment on this item in particular. It seems that we have none, so I will call for a motion.
I'll move adoption of Resolution 159723.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lando, a second by Ms. Robinson. Is there any further discussion? Alrighty. I will call for the vote. The last vote was unanimous, so we can just do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? It passes 5-0. Okay, thanks, Jim. Moving right along, we're on item 9.2.1, discussion action. This is the 2023 California School Boards Association, CSBA Delegate Assembly Election. I'm presented by Ms. Daly.
Yes, as members of the California School Boards Association, you have the opportunity to vote for the delegate from our region. There is only one person running, that is Sharon Nielsen from Oroville City. So the board can vote to support her in her quest to serve as your delegate.
Are there any technical questions for Superintendent Steely? No questions. I was asking for questions. I was asking for questions. No. Okay. All right, and I see no public comment on this item as well. So are there any motions associated with this item? I need a motion.
I move that the board cast our ballot for Sharon Nelson from Oroville City Elementary School District.
I'll second that. Thank you. So we have a motion by Ms. Robinson, a second by Dalby. Once again, we can just do a voice vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Go Sharon. Okay. Next item, 9.2.2. This is a discussion action item. It's the communication process related to board policy number 5145.3, non-discrimination and harassment, presented by Superintendent Staley.
So as everybody here is aware, there's been a lot of discussion regarding this policy. And what we wanted to do was ask legal counsel Paul Gant to come forward and walk us through some slides that talk about some of the laws that are impactful here, and then allow the board the opportunity for some discussion. So we'll turn it over to Paul Gant, our local attorney.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Staley, members of the board, Madam Board President. I hope you will excuse me. As you may be able to tell, I'm having a little bit of hoarseness in my voice myself, so I'm going to try to make this relatively brief and give lots of time for the board to ask questions and receive comment. As indicated, the topic tonight relates primarily to Board Policy 5145.3. Now, the board policy itself, and I've heard comments on this earlier, is a policy that was originally recommended by the California School Boards Association, and it is designed to comply with state anti-discrimination law. And so that's the starting point when we look at issues surrounding various types of potential areas of discrimination, and also privacy matters that involve students who may be protected or in protected classes in the district. Now, the legal mandate, which is at Education Code Section 221.5, AB 1266, this is state law that was passed to specifically place in the Education Code explicit protections for students to allow them to participate in segregated school programs and activities and use facilities consistent with the student's gender identity, irrespective of the gender that is listed in the pupil records. And that's a matter of state law, and board policy and regulation, of course, is required to generally track with state law. The Assembly Bill AB 1266 is also state law enacted in order to require that courses, classes, and activities be conducted without regard to the sex of the pupil in the schools of the state of California. Assembly Bill 1266 also states and requires that school counselors, teachers, administrators, other staff may not, on the basis of sex, of the pupil offer vocational or school program guidance to a pupil of one sex that is different than that offered to a pupil of the opposite sex, or differentiate in their counseling on the basis of the sex of the pupil. So again, all established in law. AB 1266 as well guarantees that participation in a particular physical education activity or sport, if required of pupils of one sex, shall be available to pupils of each sex. In addition, a pupil shall be permitted to participate in sex-segregated school programs and activities and use of facilities consistent with the student's gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the pupil's records. And that will include, of course, the birth certificate, which may include for that particular student a gender or sex at birth that is different than the gender that the student may currently be identifying as. Now, those are the laws. Subsequent to the passage of those laws, we have had, with specific reference to students who may either suspect or question their gender or identify as another gender, guidance that has been issued by the California State Department of Education. And the guidance is easily accessible. The website is available for anyone to check. And this is the Department of Education's interpretation of AB 1266, and also their interpretation of federal law and guidance from the federal U.S. Department of Education and Department of Justice as to what kinds of protections are available to students who may identify as a gender that is different than their sex at birth.
Mr. Gant?
Yes.
Oh, there it is right there. So this title of this document is Frequently Asked Questions.
Correct.
Right? And this is appearing on the webpage of the California Department of Education.
That's correct.
So it's not something that's, a bill didn't become a law to result in this document.
Right.
No agency promulgated regulations that resulted in this document. This is basically the Department of Education's interpretation of the laws that you just read to us.
Well, correct. With the Department of Education, we can't be sure. They don't tell us everything that the attorneys internally consider, but we certainly know that their starting point would be state law. But they would also look at principles that involve constitutional law at the federal and state level, and they would consider that information as well, no doubt, in issuing their guidance.
So in theory, this FAQ document was written by one or more attorneys within the California Department of Education.
I can't really speak to who wrote it. I'm sure attorneys were involved in interpreting the laws and the constitutional provisions. But what we do know is that this is the guidance that has been issued by the State Department of Education. They oversee all schools and school districts within the state of California. And so fundamental of administrative law is that, at least under current both federal and state legal precedent, is that those agencies who are required to implement the statutes on a particular topic, such as the Education Code, as CDE is required to implement the Education Code, that their interpretations are given a certain degree of, we say, deference. And that means that, not that it's necessarily binding, but that it is considered instructive. It's considered to have weight, a certain degree of weight, should the matter come before a court of law. Now, that's a fairly vague concept, but that's what the courts have said, is that those agencies that have to interpret the law that has been passed by the legislature to apply to their particular area of expertise, in this case education, their interpretations are going to be giving some degree of deference.
Why do they not have to identify themselves? I mean, if they're a political appointee, you know, I mean, we have no idea who this person is who wrote this, and yet we're implementing policies based on some FAQ document, you know, on a web page down in Sacramento. Would this be Tony Thurman? I mean,
I really can't speak. I'm not here as a representative of the California Department of Education. I can't really speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm really just looking to present information regarding the background for your discussion. With regard to the guidance that the state has provided, and this doesn't cover every detail of all the FAQs, but I think some of the larger issues that have to be considered by the board as it thinks about policy, as it thinks about regulation in this area, and direction to take as that's best for your school district. It's at least instructive and important to look at what has been stated by the state of California through Department of Education through their provisions in the frequently asked questions. So understanding that, kind of have a starting point for what they're looking at. The first and very important factor, which is obviously controversial, as we all know, is the fact that there is no minimum age for the guidance that CDE has issued. In other words, this is not an area where they say one rule applies to students that are over a certain age or under a certain age. These rules, to the extent that they are rules or that they are guidance, are designed to apply to students at all ages.
So in the opinion of the California Department of Education, if a TK child or a kindergartner were to come in and say they wanted to be the opposite gender, that we should go ahead and adopt that child's preferred pronouns and identity and name and not inform the parents that this is being done. That's the opinion of the CDE?
Well, again, I can't speak for the CDE. All I can say is that the guidance that they have provided, it does not differentiate based on age. Now, it does, and tonight's presentation, as I understand it, was primarily to focus on the issue, because this is a very complex area with a lot of features to it and a lot of different impacts if we look at the entire area of protections related to gender identity. But my understanding was that we were primarily focusing in on the issue of consent. In other words, whether a child's consent was necessary in order for someone, a school staff person or a counselor, to reach out to a parent under given circumstances. Now, the guidance that has been issued under the FAQs has been that the consent of the minor is generally required to share information with parents or other individuals that relate to the issues that the student is having with their gender identity, if that is shared with, for example, a counselor. However, it does provide exceptions for compelling circumstances that relate to the student health and safety. Yes, Member Robinson.
Mr. Gant, I'm not on. One of the things that is kind of transformative for me in the lead-in to some of what they have presented as to the goals of the languages and things is to provide and promote the goal of reducing stigmatization of and improving the educational integration of transgender and gender nonconforming students, maintaining the privacy of all students, and supporting healthy communication between educators, students, and parents to further the successful educational development and well-being of every student. So that kind of says in a nutshell exactly what we're looking at is the privacy of the student and finding ways to protect that privacy and yet support the student in their walk through their gender identification process.
Do you have a question? Do you have a question of Mr. Gant? We're just making sure that we're only asking technical questions for Mr. Gant during this time.
Yeah, the question seemed to be, why are we following the Department of Education language and what they have put in front of us as school officials to develop the well-being of every student? And I thought that those sentences demonstrated what it is they feel develops the well-being of every student.
I think what we can say on the topic, as far as from technical standpoint, is that first of all, that the guidance of the Department of Education is broadly followed by school districts in the state of California with regard to this and other issues. And there are a number of reasons for that. And some of those have to do with the fact that that guidance is given a certain degree of deference, and for districts that may step out of that and take a different path, there are certain legal risks associated with that. We can say that. I think we can also say that, that the issue of the balance between the right to privacy that is recognized in the statute under constitutional principles, the right to privacy that is also afforded students, has guided CDE in their thinking on this, and they are at least attempting, and I'm not taking a position on whether their attempt is successful or exactly where the line should be drawn, but there's an attempt to draw a balance between where does the privacy of the student have to give way to other factors that may involve their health, their safety, things of that kind. And I would interpret at least their FAQs to be some attempt to draw that. I'm not going to suggest one way or another whether they've drawn that in the correct place.
Mr. Gant, back on the last slide, please. Your second bullet says, guidance states that the consent of the minor is required to share information with parents or other.
Pertaining to their gender identity status that they may disclose or discuss with school staff. Correct.
Can you show me where that is in the document, the guidance document? Because the word consent doesn't actually appear in the document.
Well, I don't have the consent, and I probably should take this up. I don't have the document in front of me, but my recollection that within those FAQs, within their guidance, is included the concept that that the student must, if the student has expressed issues pertaining to their gender to the counselor, to the school staff person, that their consent must be obtained to disclose to the parent and other individuals. And I would be happy to look that up and send you a citation to that at a later time. As I stated before, this is a legal interpretation that CDE has taken, and as you pointed out, I think other board members have pointed out, that it's not expressly in a law in the way that it has been expressed in the FAQs. It has not yet been tested in the courts, quite frankly. So we don't know what the courts yet will say about that particular interpretation. And from a legal standpoint, as I see it, my advice would have to be that either implementing the guidance in the form of, for example, a CSBA regulation that essentially restates it, or if you fashion one of your own with your own language, but that implements the state guidance, that presents legal risks. As we know, it can result in lawsuits. By the same token, taking a different path and not following the guidance and forming a rule or a policy, a different policy that does not follow the guidance also presents legal risk from perhaps others with different points of view. There is a background to this because it isn't just the AB 1266 that forms the background for interpretation. It's not just constitutional law, but it's other statutes that address similar areas. And so it's sometimes helpful to look at those other statutes to see what the structure around consent is. How has the law already recognized that students have some degree of privacy over certain sensitive information, whether it's medical information and the like, and where are parents kind of guaranteed access to information. So one of those areas has to do, and is particularly sensitive, in that it impacts on a substantial number of our staff members. And for counselors, we have very specific guidance in the statute when they are working generally with a student on counseling issues. We know that under Education Code Section 49602, any information of a personal nature disclosed by a pupil who is 12 years of age or older in the process of receiving counselor as specified in 49600 is confidential. It must be kept confidential. Okay, so that's already established in the statute. It doesn't address gender status specifically, but it does say, as a general matter, counselors have a confidentiality duty under the law as it currently exists. However, there are exceptions that 49602 sets forth. These are general, again, for general topics. So if, for example, there needs to be a referral for some type of treatment, medical or mental health treatment, for reports of child abuse, to the parent or guardian, if it's needed in order to avert a clear and present danger to the student, again, 12 years or older, to an administrator, if there's been any kind of crime that may be involved. And of course, with a written waiver from the student is another exception under 49602. Again, I want to emphasize, though, that the law states that a school counselor shall not disclose under the exceptions This is an additional layer of support or protection for the student under 49602, which is, even if one of those exceptions exist, if the disclosure itself would present a danger to the health, safety, or welfare of the student, that overrides the exception. So it's if you might call it an exception to the exception. Now, as a result of all of these various pressures, if you will, and requirements, the district has been operating under a consent, a form that it provides to students so that they can express consent for release of information, or, to allow for the contact with parents or others regarding their status. And so we have a copy of the existing form in the materials if you'd like to have a look at that. This is when we are offering counseling services, and it provides the parent or the guardian an opportunity to consent for their child to participate in those services, or not. Thank you.
And this is something that is being used right now, Chico Unified?
That's our current form for students that are age 11 and under.
For how long has that been in use?
Ever since we've had counselors at the elementary level or at 6th grade, we have 11-year-olds that are 6th graders too. So when we implemented counselors at those levels, that form came out for any student that's under 11 and under. You have to have consent for counseling, and it's been since the conception that we've had counselors on those sites.
So I understand this is an imperfect overview. This is a very broad subject. There are a lot of factors to consider in looking at these policies and considering whether to make either revisions to current existing practice or to follow the guidance that the Department of Education has provided. I think our goal tonight is primarily awareness and to begin a discussion. I hope I have communicated to a certain extent that it is an area in which great caution is required, because no matter what path the board may choose, it is a relatively narrow path. There are so many laws and constitutional provisions that are an impact on this that any decision to implement a policy is going to have to be carefully considered, both from the impact on your community, on your students, but also all of the potential legal pitfalls that may exist. So I just want to emphasize that, again, not with any intent to suggest a particular direction, particularly at this early point. We did, working with staff, put together some considerations for updating the communication process with students, and particularly as it pertains to transgender students. There are going to be risks and benefits with any of these, and these are just a few that we wanted to point out. Any action that you take, and particularly with the district being one of a relative handful of districts that are in the public eye on this topic, is going to set up the very real possibility the district becomes the target for the next test case. That's an expensive and difficult proposition, but it's one that you have to, I think, be aware is out there. The obviously community controversy, whether, you know, there can be many different sides and different points of view on these topics. It's going to be very difficult probably for the board to satisfy all those points of view and find just the right decision that's going to satisfy all groups, and there will be probably, no matter what direction you take, you can probably count on there being a fair amount of controversy. Mention the test case. That's for advocacy groups, but there's also litigation. So for every different point of view and for every individual impacted by your decisions, there can be impacts on individual students, their parents, or families, and those can result in individual litigation. Impacts on the students, whether students who, you know, and I don't want to go too far down this path, but we can imagine that there might be students who, if a policy goes a certain direction, they may feel that, they may feel that they are more free to share information. Other students may feel they are less free to share information at school. That, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, or a good policy or a bad policy, is probably a question that the board, in working with your community, has to answer. But that does impact on student decisions in the school in terms of what they tell staff, what they share, and how they share it, naturally. And then challenges for staff. To some extent, the decision on if we accept that there is going to be some kind of a balance between determining when information must be shared with parents, like where is the safety of the child line drawn? Someone's going to have to make that decision in individual cases. And how is that decision going to be made, and who is going to make that decision? How is that going to impact on staff members? How are you going to get uniformity for decisions that are made? How are staff members that may make those decisions in good faith going to be protected from, whether it is in the form of bullying, whether it is in the form of a lot of communication and attention, or whether it's in the form of potentially being named in some kind of legal action if somebody didn't agree with how they made that decision. So those are considerations as well. Now, with that said, we put some options out there just to perhaps start the discussion. So one possibility is to understand that this is a matter of controversy statewide, at which policymakers at very high levels are currently looking at these matters. There are several court cases pending that are going to probably have an impact on how the law is interpreted in these areas. And I happen to know that there are several cases pending right now in the courts, and I've spoken with attorneys involved in those cases. So I can't give you a firm idea when the decision, the determinative decision on some of these issues is going to come out, but we know that will play out over time. And so one possibility is to consider maintaining your status quo and await for some of these other interpretations to come out that will help guide you so that you're not necessarily stepping out there as the test case, sort of in a lonely fashion. You could, of course, begin the process of moving toward and developing a policy and take some time doing that as the additional information comes in. Or you could simply choose to say, you know, we've looked at this and we feel like CDE has given us this guidance. We're entitled, I mean, if CDE is supposed to be the expert, we've been given this guidance, we're entitled to follow that guidance, we're in a safe place. We feel that given both CDE and CSBA's recommendation, and remember the California School Board Association provides you legal support and advice with regard to all of your regulations and policies, and they have a very specific recommended regulation in this area that tracks very closely, if not directly, with CDE guidance. In fact, CDE has cited the CSBA guidance in a positive manner, saying, yes, that is the kind of guidance that we think is appropriate. So that's an option. If you wanted to, in essence, flip the analysis, it's possible to look at a regulation or policy that would say that instead of needing a compelling reason to share the information with parents essentially over the student's lack of consent, that you would analyze develop a regulation or policy that would say, absent a compelling reason, the information would be shared. So it's more of an affirmative. The idea being that we're going to err on essentially the side of sharing the information unless there's a compelling reason. And choosing what those compelling reasons might be would be a very important part of the process. In some sense, it still involves a balancing between potential privacy right of the student and a consideration of what's in the student's best interest. It just, in essence, places, if you will, the burden on the analysis in a slightly different place, with more of a default of attempting to or find the way to share the information with the parent, absent a reason otherwise. And then there is the possible interpretation. If there's a weakness in the CDE guidance, and I mean there certainly are debates, a lot of debates in it, but I think that it's fair to say that the absence to address age at least is one that I think is going to be given a lot of legal attention. I think that has been pointed out, if the CDE guidance is intended to say that there's a one-size-fits-all that has no gradation as a result of age, it at least causes one to wonder, because we see the age distinction in so many other areas of the statutes, especially the one that relates to counseling, which is maybe the law that is the most closely aligned with some of the considerations we see here, where they have created a distinction between the child who is 11 and under and 12 and over. They haven't done that in their guidance here. There isn't a statute, there isn't a regulation, there's nothing in the constitutional principles per se, other than a recognition probably, and I'm not going to cite cases here today, but I think there is a recognition in some of the case law that students of younger, more vulnerable age, that these constitutional principles are not necessarily set in stone, and they may be flexible, they may be different, with a factor being the maturity of the child. But I think that's somewhat speculative, but at least it's something that may be considered.
So what's an example of something that a 12-year-old child could do that an 11-year-old child could not do under that?
Not sure. I'm not sure I under the The 12-year-old student under the counseling guidelines is explicitly under statute has the right to refuse to allow the information that they have shared with the counselor to be disclosed, unless there is one of those overwhelming, really exceptions. And even then, you have to flip it back and look at the end of the day. Could that disclosure harm the student? So, perhaps an extreme example might be that the student is telling the counselor that they're being threatened by a gang. Gosh, that sounds terrible. That sounds scary. We can't keep that secret. We need to disclose that to the parent. Under the exception, that sounds like that fits. We better go tell the parent because that child's at risk, at danger, and the parent in the community is the one who's going to be the best to address that. Except what if the child also tells us that the parent has gang affiliation? Whoa. Now we need to flip it again. We need to look and see, does the exception to the exception come into play? Because if the child discloses that to the parent, their health and safety is at risk. So that principle exists under the 49602 provisions that relate to school counselors. So this brings the question for discussion. Yes?
Excuse me. Was not expecting that voice to come out. On the slide that had the link to the CDE FAQ page.
Yes. I'm not very good at doing anything other than sort of scrolling through.
Perfect.
So let me get back to that.
And then, so this has the link and then specifically reference number 6 and 7. And then on the next slide, this is where the bulleted no minimum age for
right.
Providing information to families when their issue is related to gender identity. Guidance states consent of minor required to share. Guidance provides exceptions for. Is that those pieces are being pulled from that number 6 and 7
Yes.
from that link? Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
in that area.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, is there anything else?
I had one question.
Yes.
We were advised by our party that the CSBA, when they were reaching out to them, they commented that although these are their recommendations or regulations, that there is really no legal backing. That was information we were told, but that sounds different than what you just said, where you said that we would have legal counsel to support us.
I didn't say that exactly.
Okay.
So,
Maybe
and
clarify,
I don't want to
because I
get
don't understand.
in trouble with my friends at the CSBA. I actually know and have worked with many of them. But let me say this. The CSBA hires attorneys to vet their recommended policies and regulations. Those are often interpretations of statutes and state regulations. They're interpretations. They don't necessarily track word by word, and they often do provide you with interpretive guidance. They give you a recommended regulation, for example, based on their best legal interpretation internally as to what would be permissible and what would be defensible. But they are not your hired attorneys. And so that's very important to understand. They are consultants. They utilize legal skills in order to give you that advice. But if to use a well-worn phrase, if you read the fine print, you'll find that they do tell you that at the end of the day, each school district, each school board has the responsibility to pass and implement legally defensible policies and regulations, and that you should, in the event of doubt, you should consult with legal counsel that directly represents you and gives you legal guidance and legal opinion. Now, I'm aware of what you're saying, and I think that if you speak with CSBA, they would say they stand behind their work, they believe their work is correct, but they are consultants, and they don't guarantee, they don't indemnify you, if you will, for the regulation. Or policy. They provide both policies and regulations, which typically are not necessarily approved by the board. Those are often approved at the staff level, but they're both contain that kind of guidance. Yeah. Okay, well, unless you really desperately need me to stay up here, I'd like to get out of your way and allow your agenda item to continue. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will be moving into our public comment section of this item. We do have 16 speakers signed up, that are 16 unique speakers that are signed up. And so I'm going to ask, or I guess I'm going to move to suspend our rules for the 3 minutes of speaking and request we consider 2 minutes of speaking time to stay as close to our 30 minutes of public comment time as possible.
So that is a motion?
That is a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
What are we voting on? Sorry?
Because, so this is pretty typical. Every time we have more than 10 speakers sign up for an item, we generally go through this process of suspending the, moving to suspend the rules to try to stay within our board-determined 30-minute limit for public comment per item.
We have
16. Mm-hmm.
I think we should give everybody their 3 minutes.
Madam President?
No, 16 unique, 16 unique speakers? 16 unique speakers.
Right. But what I noticed was some of the people on the list also spoke earlier, and if they could self-monitor if they're going to repeat what they've already said to, to just not.
I only see one, and that's what I said, the 16 unique speakers.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm for giving as much time as needed to get everyone that's been here and signed up a chance to speak.
Well, that's okay.
Me
We can actually vote. This is discussion. Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Tennis.
Tennis, nay.
Dalby, nay.
You wanted,
To suspend the rules and give only 2 minutes per.
I want to suspend the rules.
I'm so confused.
We should let everybody speak 3 minutes.
You want to give everybody a chance to speak.
Yes.
So you say yay, right?
Wait, so, okay,
Nay,
let's
nay.
clarify what's on the table here. I made a motion to suspend the rules for providing 3 minutes of speaking time
Shortening it.
to stay within the 30 minutes and hear from everybody, rather than cutting it off at 10 people, to stay within the 30 minutes.
Can we? Can I make a motion to allow everybody to speak for 3 minutes?
Sure, after we finish voting on this motion.
So if we want people to vote, to be able to speak for all 30 of their minutes, everyone, how should we vote on this? Aye or nay?
Talking about just the people that have signed up, right?
Yes, I'm saying to move it to 2 minutes per person for 32, well, it's a little bit more than 32 minutes of speaking time, rather than 3 minutes per person, which is still lots of speaking time. Speaking from experience and being cut down to 1 minute at city council meetings. And I can't math right now. Thank you. I was almost there. I can't do my brain things way too much. That's all over the place right now.
So are you planning to cut off public comment?
Okay, listen. According to our rules, we provide the time to give public comment opportunity for 30 minutes per item. That's our board rules. So if everybody would like to speak in as close to 30 minutes as possible, I am suggesting that we move it to 2 minutes per person.
Suspend
So we vote nay. We vote nay if we don't agree with that and we want to come up with a new idea.
So I'm advocating a nay vote on this, understanding that what this motion would do would be to shorten people's speaking time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes.
I think that people can get there, they have the opportunity to say what they need to say in 2 minutes. And I just am being mindful of staff time and our time and folks' time here.
I advocate a no vote on this motion.
I support going to 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Nay.
Tennis nay.
I know my vote was confusing. I support going to 2 minutes.
I'm going to say nay at this point because I think we need more discussion. I know there's another motion coming up. So I'm voting nay at this point.
You voted nay.
Because it's clear we're going to have another motion on this, and I think we need to, again, explain the fact that we typically have 30 minutes total for discussion, and I hear that there's desire to change those rules as well. I think we need to keep going. So I'm going to say nay at this point. If the motion comes up again in the future, that might be different.
Okay, so right now, as the rules stand, we will hear from the first 10 people on the list.
I think we've got that. Are you going to do that, right?
And that we extended the time for the public comments.
Second. And I don't know why this has to be an issue of disagreement, because we've lots of times heard a lot of people talk on a matter. In fact, I don't think we've really ever sent a lot of people out of the door without being heard here. I don't think so. Okay, call the question.
That's true. I'm going to move the vote. I'm going to start with Member Robinson.
And just to restate the motion, please.
The motion is to hear from each speaker for 3 minutes each.
Yes. Aye.
Lando, aye.
Tennis, aye.
Dalby, aye. With that, actually, I'm going to call for a break. I'm sorry I have to use the bathroom, but that's just all y'all's too much information. So just keep it to yourselves, okay? so we are returning from break. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me on that. All right, so ahead of public comment, we made the decision to hear 16 speakers. These speakers put in a speaker submission card by noon today, which is stated on our school board's website. I do want to remind the audience that there are children present, and everybody does hear what everybody does say. And we also have a civility clause for this space, and that succinctly is to please remain respectful and refrain from any sort of bullying, harassment, or otherwise negative comments that may hurt some other folks who may be more vulnerable than others. And so with that, one more reminder that there's a 30-second warning at the end. Everybody will get their 3 minutes to speak. Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. And we always welcome public comment for each item on our agenda. And so with that, we will start with Michelle Cooper.
You'd like me to be the first person on a hot topic, huh? My name is Michelle Cooper, and I'm here tonight as a parent of a student at PV. I have 2 older children and have been a parent in this district since 2001. The changes I have seen in this district over the last 22 years have been horrific, to say the least. I'm here speaking on behalf of parental rights. Schools, teachers, counselors, and staff do not have the right to keep families in the dark as to what is going on with their child. Parents' rights are fundamental and supreme. Schools need to support the family unit, not try and replace it. Students have the right to simply be kids without their teachers and staff pushing their agendas on them, without feeling pressure and anxiety of schools trying to change who they are. I should not feel like dropping my child at school is like taking him to Las Vegas. What happens at school stays at school. These are our children, not yours. We know what's best for them, not you. The policies adopted by this district are based on guidance, not law. It's time these policies are replaced with those that acknowledge that parents must be informed and there will be full transparency when it comes to our children. This district and the board need to understand that as parents, our children are protected by us, not from us. It's time to get back to classic education, where the district is concerned about real science, history, math, English, etc., and not how to indoctrinate our children. Your job is to educate, not to change students' genders, offer medical interventions, or anything else outside the scope of teaching. In addition, there should be no speakers or outside groups allowed on campus that are not directly related to pre-approved curriculum. Parents have the right to know everything that involves their children. Our children deserve their innocence. Let them be kids.
Next up, we have Devin Tarr.
Thank you for your time. My name is Devin. I'm a parent of an 8th grade girl at Blue Oak School. We're currently in a time of pretty big divisiveness, I think, and any healthy relationship is built on 2 things, trust and transparency. And trust and transparency between parents and Chico Unified is critical for the health of our children's education. The California Educational Code itself says, involving parents and guardians of pupils in the education process is fundamental to a healthy system of education. And as the school board, it's your responsibility to promote what is fundamental to the healthy education of our students. And that's not creating separation between students and those who have raised them throughout their lives. On October 12th, I received an email that Stonewall Alliance had come and done a presentation in my students' classroom on LGBTQIA+ meanings, as well as the meaning of orientation. And on Stonewall Alliance's website, they define orientation as an umbrella term that includes both sexual orientation and romantic orientation. I was notified that this had happened after it had happened. So I'm grateful that the school saw fit to notify me as the parent that this was occurring. I just wish that they would have done so beforehand. That would have created some trust and transparency. As it is, I mean, that's totally fine. I love and support the LGBTQIA+ community, but I want there to be trust and transparency as a parent with the school district. That is just so critical. And so it is my sincere hope that you will promote policies that promote that trust and transparency. We can abide by the law without keeping parents in the dark about what's going on with their children. And I really hope that you guys will take action to join with the community so that we can have trust and transparency between the parents and Chico Unified. Thank you so much.
Up next, we have, excuse me, Loretta Ann Torres.
This is a long way. Okay, I'm Loretta Ann Torres. I'm a parent and a grandparent living here in Chico. And what I've seen tonight is a lot of confusion and chaos when it comes to our children's journey to adulthood. Parents are the first teachers of our children. We do not do a crap job, as someone described to me recently, in the area of guiding them through puberty. We parents and grandparents are good people. We deserve to be respected when trying to guide our children to be well-adjusted adults. There are so many external prompts from Hollywood's movies, their famous role models on TV and media, and it's resulting in what's happening here tonight. I used to trust teachers and counselors to be facilitators of conversations between parents and their children on issues of sexuality. Unfortunately, this is no longer the case. Counselors and teachers should not, I repeat, should not be putting walls between parents and their children or trying to social engineer our children. When a child is naturally questioning their body, counselors and teachers must help parents by inviting them into the conversation. There are laws already on the books giving parents their rights of transparency in their children's education. It's called the 14th Amendment. Teachers on the whole are not to blame. I don't blame you all. I mean, as a whole, these interpretations by California's unelected bureaucrats in this area are to be blamed. I believe you can do the right thing here and make a policy statement that reflects the laws, not anonymous guidance. Another step I kind of personally think would be a good first step to list on your website the mandatory workshops and seminars that your teachers are required to attend. They often have speakers that mislead our teachers. Several teachers have confided in me they've been appalled after hearing, quote, suggestions, unquote, for changes to their classrooms regarding this subject. These teachers are very often afraid to share their objections to the state's interpretations, either to each other or to you. My message to you tonight is, let them be kids and let their parents be their parents. Thank you.
Carrie Kruger.
Good evening. Testimony was just heard in the Virginia State Legislature where a 2021 high schooler named Sage, a biological female who told her school that she was now a boy, a fact kept secret from her parents, was removed from her home by the state and placed in a male children's group home where she was abused, raped, and trafficked. Those that participate in upholding the same parental secrecy policies in this district shoulder responsibility for outcomes like Sage's when policies like these are enforced. If this kind of deceptive, disrespectful, and manipulative policy is allowed to continue within this district, it's only a matter of time before something similar happens here. We can all agree that kids need to be protected from physical abuse that occurs in the home. However, it's not child abuse for a parent to refer to their child by their biological sex. Furthermore, this policy could even prevent the needed aid and understanding of parents during an incredibly difficult time for children, potentially increasing the trauma the child is experiencing by robbing them of available support. Schools don't get to assume parents don't care about raising their children and act accordingly. History has shown they have assumed wrong, and the ones who suffer most are our children. Excluding parents in the life-altering decisions of their children is wrong. Do what's right. Require parental notification of children in anguish. Thank you.
Bill. I will have, please. Can we please all sit down and have order?
Each woman that's walked by, he spoke to. Only the women.
Sir, can you just sit on the other side, please? Honestly, everybody, I will not have a hostile environment. Please move to the end of the line, sir. Excuse me, sir. No. I've called for Bill, I'm really sorry if I say your last name wrong. Bill Markey? Markey? Markey. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm here tonight to respectfully address the district's so-called parental secrecy policy and the promotion of gender ideology by Chico Unified faculty members. My hope tonight is that you will earnestly consider these following points. Firstly, on the issue of parental secrecy, by implementing a policy of parental secrecy, we are effectively cutting parents out of the conversation about their child's education, well-being, and safety. This is both unethical and inappropriate. Parents are the best protectors of their children, and parents have the fundamental rights regarding the upbringing of their children. How can educators and parents be expected to build trusting relationships for the betterment of their children when promoting secrecy and potentially sowing seeds of discord? Secondly, the behavior of pushing gender ideology onto children at your school is appalling. This is a predatory behavior on innocent children that is potentially causing irreversible mental and physical harm. These issues are not the responsibility or concern of an educator whose only real responsibility and action in these matters should be to notify the parents or guardian so that they may engage in conversation with their children or seek professional help. Which brings me to my last point. The district needs to refocus on traditional subject learning and stop shoehorning pop ideologies like social emotional learning into the curriculum. It's no surprise our children's standardized test scores are suffering. We have chosen to deprioritize the fundamentals of math, science, and language arts for the SEL-based curriculum. Stop social engineering and teach real engineering. In conclusion, I urge the Chico Unified School District Board to end the policy of parental secrecy and promotion of gender ideology and refocus on traditional subject learning over programs like SEL, even if that means turning down state and federal funding aimed at pushing their social political agendas. These issues are crucial to the education and well-being of our children, and it is our responsibility, all of us, to ensure that they are addressed promptly and appropriately. Thank you for your time and attention today.
I have Taylor Gooderham.
Taylor Gooderham.
Hello, Board. I'm here speaking as a mom of young children in the school district and on behalf of those who couldn't be here today. I am concerned at the direction in which our schools have headed. Instead of focusing on core subjects like math, history, and language arts, schools have taken it upon themselves to be concerned with children's sexual identities. I understand mental health is important, especially after the lockdowns of 2021 and 2020. But it is not in our children's best interest to confuse them about topics that is far beyond their mental capacity to grasp, and to furthermore encourage our vulnerable and impressionable children to reconsider their gender behind their parents' backs. What's next? Encourage them to hide drug use or other pressing matters that parents should be aware of? We entrust our students to your hands, and we would like to know that we can be kept in the loop about our children's well-being. Transparency is key in these formidable years, and the fact that children can become victims of peer pressure and adult pressure alike is all the more reason to not have secrecy in the school. A child can easily fall prey to abuse by someone in an authoritative position that they have been told to trust and hold secrecy with. I am asking you all to consider a vote to change the secrecy policy and to do right by the families of the Chico Unified School District.
Terry Dubose.
Good evening, Board. My name's Terry DeBose. I'm the Butte County District Representative for Congressman LaMalfa, and I'm here tonight to speak on his behalf. The parents of Chico Unified School District are rightfully and understandably outraged at the unconscionable behavior of the school district. Know that the Congressman shares your outrage and demands accountability from Chico Unified School District. It is detestable that a public school system would think it is acceptable to pressure an impressionable child to change their gender, their name, and their pronouns and make them hide it from their parents. As a fellow parent, the Congressman understands that it is our God-given duty to protect our children, and a big part of that is being involved in children's education and demanding transparency from school administrators and educators. Parents should not be kept in the dark about what is happening with their children at school. Our schools are supposed to prepare children for success, not allow woke counselors to socially transition them in secret from their parents. The Congressman commends you all for standing in defense of your children against this misconduct and joins you in demanding change. The Congressman is currently working on a federal bill to stop this malpractice from affecting or harming any more children. Thank you to everyone who came here today to advocate to protect our children. Thank you.
Deanna Lindstrom.
Good evening, board members. I'm Deanna Lindstrom. This is my husband, Justin Lindstrom, and we have children in your district. I was a foster kid, awarded the state from a young age until I was 18. I could be that statistic you read about, and at some point I was. But I'm not that person. I am a parent, a good parent that changed my family history, a history that was horrible. Our children are very loved, supported, and cared for. I have worked extremely hard to be where my family is today. The school district removing us from our children's daily lives strikes a nerve. We are not the enemy. We will not allow you to take away our ability to participate in parenting and supporting our children. You think you have the right to take that responsibility from us because you believe you can do a better job counseling and supporting our children better than the people who love them the most. It is incredibly insulting, to say the least. Your focus should be on education, not conditioning, grooming, and indoctrinating our children. You are also teaching our children to be deceitful with their families, which is morally and ethically wrong. You are supposed to be educators. Hiding behind your titles and degrees does not change that what you are doing is predatory and wrong. Thank you.
Aaron Whitney.
Hello, my name is Erin Whitney. I am a Chico community member, parent, and faculty member in the School of Education at Chico State. I taught special education for 18 years, and I do research on equity and access in schools. I have co-facilitated workshops on supporting transgender students, and I have been impressed by the thoughtful educators who work so hard to make all of their students feel welcome. I'm here tonight in support of Board Policy 5143 and Chico Unified's adherence to AB 1266 and Ed Code because young people deserve schools that are affirming for LGBT youth. I wish to share some important research about what LGBT students experience when their identities are dismissed and ignored in schools, and what happens when their identities are affirmed. I will share data from the 2021 GLSEN National School Climate Survey of 22,000 LGBT youth. Some upsetting findings from the survey are that 82% of LGBT students reported feeling unsafe in school, and 76% experienced verbal harassment. Overall, LGBT students reported higher levels of bullying and discrimination, which led to higher rates of absenteeism, decreased educational outcomes, and increased anxiety and depression, including considering or attempting suicide. However, what happens when schools affirm and support LGBT identities? Examples of gender-affirming actions that schools can take include hosting gay-straight alliance clubs, reading books featuring LGBT characters or historical figures, shutting down gender-based bullying, and using the pronouns and names that students identify with. The good news is that schools can make a positive difference in the lives of LGBT youth. The same survey showed that LGBT students with supportive teachers and inclusive curricula felt greater belonging to their school community, performed better academically, were more likely to plan on pursuing post-secondary education, reported better psychological well-being, and lower likelihood of having seriously considered suicide. As would be expected, similar trends show up in research on affirming LGBT identities in the home. A survey by the Trevor Project in 2022 looked at the positive impact of acceptance outside of school, finding that LGBT youth reported lower rates of attempting suicide when they felt more supported by their family and friends. Unfortunately, some young people do not have that support at home and look to school to find the sense of belonging. I believe that Chico Unified is working towards creating safe and inclusive spaces for all children. I acknowledge that shifting understandings of gender are complicated, and the question of how to include families is an important one. What I don't want to see is the district turning away from the research on supporting LGBT youth. Instead, I hope to see the district continue to work with community organizations to deepen their understandings and ensure a greater sense of belonging for all students. I request the district remain consistent with CDE guidance on AB 1266. Thank you.
Paula Warren.
My name is Paula Warren, and I am a parent. I'm here to share my recommendation with the board on updating the communication process as outlined under the topic 9.2.2. I'm in favor of this policy being updated to ensure parent involvement. The board slide pointed to CEO guidance, specifically 6 and 7, but I feel could have also included number 5. The response by them was the first and best option is always to engage in an open dialogue with the student and the student's parent or parents if applicable. Quote, at the very least, the board should consider the 4th option, which is absent a compelling reason, contact the parent guardian for students age 11 and under. At maximum, this policy should be reevaluated to ensure it will not be used to keep parents in the dark when their child is experiencing things that could require extra support. I'm not advocating to disclose every detail the child discusses with the counselor or to disclose specific details that could compromise the child's trust or safety. I'm advocating for the parents of the child to be included or notified when their child is receiving counseling so they too can offer the support necessary for their own child alongside the school. For years, the education system has begged parents to be involved, yet this policy provides the opportunity to exclude them when they could be needed most. On the topic of gender, I read comments from a parent that felt supported by CUSD during her child's transition. I appreciate her comments and her perspective. It confirms that parent involvement is critical, and in that instance, the parents, the school, counselors, and everyone else who could be involved was. This is what this policy and any other policy should allow for. I believe when a child is in need, any type of need, the more positive support and involvement they can get, the better. Please ensure all CUSD policies are written to allow this to happen for our kids, then adjust and correct policies when they don't.
Brent Silberbauer.
Hi, my name is Brent. What brought me out here today was the recent allegations with the lawsuit with Chico Unified and a guidance counselor helping an elementary school child transition to a different gender without notifying the parents. I have 2 kids here in a local elementary school in town, and my opinion is that there's never an appropriate reason for a guidance counselor to speak to an elementary age child about sex, sexual identity, sexual preference, gender identity, or anything else related to that topic without immediately notifying the parents. If a young person is struggling with their identity or any kind of sexual thing, it's at that time that they need their parents and their families more than ever. It's not the time to keep them out of the loop and divide parents from the students. I listened to the presentation, but when I compare that to the allegations that were brought, there seem to be some different experiences than what the policies say. So one of the things he said is that there's a form that parents have to sign to get guidance counsel or to approve of guidance counsel one-on-one with students. As a parent, I've never received that, and in the allegation, she said she never received that either. So that there should be some kind of investigation as to how these policies are being played out, because it seems like there's a discrepancy between the actual experiences of the parent and the policies that we say we're implementing. In addition, I called the superintendent office today just to make sure I'm not having misinformation or reading things on the internet. And what they said was that when a student comes, elementary school age students comes, the elementary school student is leading the conversation with the guidance counselor regarding gender identity and things like that. However, when I think about a 10-year-old sitting down with a 35-year-old guidance counselor and thinking who's leading the conversation, I think that the 10-year-old is very vulnerable, and none of us know what that guidance counselor is saying to the 10-year-old. It's all confidential. Therefore, I think that we need to understand who these guidance counselors are, what they're saying, because they could be potentially guiding and leading young, impressionable, innocent kids down roads that are completely outside of the bounds of what their parents would desire for them, both morally and with different values. So I think we need to look in the guidance counselors and just make sure that these things are in line, or at least notify the parents, of course. So also, in addition to that, looking at the attorney today and the presentation, it seems like the policy now currently is that there's not a disclosure, there's not a clear disclosure policy with students and the parents and the guidance counselors. So I feel a bit kind of defrauded in a way, sending my kids to school and potentially putting them in a place where they could be in a way indoctrinated or misled by a guidance counselor without my knowledge and keeping me completely in the dark. And so I would like you guys to continue to focus on building trust and transparency with the guidance counselors and the parents.
That's the end
Thank
of
you.
your time. Julie Anderson Nelson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Julie Anderson Nilsson. I am a retired CUSD teacher. I am a community member as well, and a parent of 3 young adults, one of whom is transgender. I have also co-facilitated workshops on supporting transgender students in Butte County. I am here tonight in support of CUSD's affirming transgender youth and its adherence to AB 1266. And I'd like to share a little bit about my personal experience. It might shed some light on another perspective. My daughter transitioned when she was 9, and we knew for many years before that she questioned her assigned sex at birth. At 9, when she asked me to help her transition from male to female, my husband and I sought help and support in every place possible. Her insistence, consistence, and persistence in identifying as female was apparent. This was not a phase. This was not an influence by someone else. This was something internal. We read, we attended, we went to support meetings at Stonewall. We found a counselor for her, for ourselves. We were lucky to find a skilled counselor for her who transitioned earlier in his life so he could truly understand the fears and anxieties she faced presenting as a female rather than a male. We left Chico Unified after 3rd grade to attend charter schools for a few years so she could get a clean start on being a girl, but she wanted to return to Chico Junior High, so we enrolled her. This was a tricky time. This was 10 years ago. There was not a great deal of awareness about this subject, but Chico Unified stepped up to support us. I recall several visits to the counselors, teachers, and administrators at Chico Junior to discuss my daughter's safety and her academic needs. She was bullied by kids who knew her in elementary before transitioning and recognized her in 7th grade. They questioned her identity, they teased her, and excluded her. This was a small amount of kids, but it didn't matter. Junior high years are challenging years regardless, but gender dysphoria played into her day-to-day life. Watching other kids experience puberty in bodies they identified with can be isolating. The staff at Chico Junior listened, they asked questions, they made appropriate accommodations for her to be successful, and didn't question our daughter's gender. They acknowledged that there were triggers that caused her to need to be in another room or office, and the teachers or counselors always communicated to us with compassion and professionalism. It wasn't perfect. I'm not painting a rosy picture here.
Thank you,
but
Julie.
teachers,
Sorry, that's the end of your time.
Thank you.
Question for. So Chico Unified staff did communicate with you about, is that correct?
Okay, what? Can you hold on? He's
Chico-
asking me a question.
I just want to get clarity on your story because it's important and
In
valuable.
terms of when? What time?
Did they communicate with you about your daughter's transition?
My daughter's transition was our home life, and I communicated to the school what was happening.
Okay. So do you feel that, so you're speaking in favor of keeping this board policy the way that it is. You think that we, the school, should not communicate with parents about their children wanting to transition. Is that correct?
I don't think that's what the policy says. I don't think there's a secrecy clause here. I don't think there's a not communication.
Okay.
What I was trying to get across was the importance of partnership, but I got cut short because I was speaking slowly. The partnership piece that Superintendent Staley has stated is so important. It's the partnership between the school and the parents.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Thanks.
I think so. Thank you.
Justin Lindstrom. Oh. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Arwen Funk.
Thank you to Matt and Tom for proposing tonight's conversation. I'm not here tonight to debate gender ideology. I'm here as a parent to fight for our kids, the kids of our district, my own children. And it's something that parents can't do when the district hides things from us. I bring you a simple solution tonight. You must vote tonight to instill the concept of informed consent in the district's policies. Children under 18 are minors, and minors cannot give informed consent. They don't have the knowledge, the life experience, or the wisdom to make big decisions that will impact them for the rest of their lives. Adolescence is a period of heightened vulnerability. They need our protection more than ever. They can't vote, drink, rent a car. They aren't capable of big decisions, either legally or morally. So following a minor's request to hide something from a parent should be an obvious non-starter. You say you respect and value parental input, so prove it. Restore this basic legal concept of informed consent in Chico Unified. If they disagree in Sacramento, help us fight. We elected you to be leaders, not followers. Help us fix this problem. Hiding things from parents is wrong. And for the unfortunate children who don't have parents or stable guardians to turn to, simply follow the procedures you already have, and let's form a focus group with parents to find better ways to be supportive and helpful for those kids. But don't use those children as an excuse to carve all parents out of the loop for important things. That is the opposite of a good idea. We learned a lot in your attorney's presentation. The California Department of Education's guidance says, quote, preserving a student's privacy is of the utmost importance, end quote. This sentence has been used as a rationale to keep parents in the dark about their own child's gender identity. Gender affirmation by its nature requires that paperwork be changed, teachers and staff be informed, and other students are told to use the transitioner's new name and pronouns. That is not privacy. That is using a bullhorn. It's a lie to call it a concern for privacy when the parent is literally the only person that is not being told. It's discriminatory towards parents. I thought discrimination was bad. To a vulnerable and confused child that is misdiagnosed or unsure of a transition, it could even feel like bullying. Aren't you against bullying? The only reason that government schools feel like you can implement these kinds of policies is because you have monopolistic power. You need to behave as if you have competition. Parents are your customers, and you should treat us like that. As of today, in Chico Unified, a doctor's note and a special school form would be required for my daughter to take a Tylenol at school. But other far more impactful medical decisions have already been removed from us, and more are coming. This is absurd. We love our children. Let us parent them. Help us educate them. Let them be kids.
Brandy McCann.
My name is Brandy McCann. I'm just a parent. I just want to start off, I'm going to start off with assuring all of you, every single one of you, that not one of you in this room or elsewhere is more capable of providing love and support to my children. Will our school district continue to stand on the statement that they're just obeying laws when keeping secrets from parents regarding our children? Does school staff really believe we are not safe to be made aware of sensitive information our children may disclose while on school campus? Does school staff believe we are not competent or educated enough to be supportive to our children as they navigate their school years and beyond? Will it depend on the discretion of school staff whether or not we are included in sensitive information regarding our children, or will we be treated as enemies of our children? Most parents will do anything to protect their children, yet we have been made to feel as if we are now their adversaries. The lack of education, the legal backgrounds, and the income status of parents do not define the amount a child is loved or supported. Any attempt to exclude us from our child's lives in this manner is setting these children up for failure, promoting division in the home, inspiring deceitfulness to our kids, and creating an environment where parents are not as apt to support the schools their children attend. Studies have shown this to be detrimental to a child's success. You know, I heard folks talking about studies. Well, you know what else is evidence-based? Studies that show parental involvement across the board in all subject areas, including the daily life of a child when at school. These studies show the benefits of parental involvement in a child's education. The authors of these studies exemplify the fact that parents' involvement in their child's learning process provides success improvements on child's morale, attitude, and academic achievement across all subject areas, behavior, and social adjustment. Even in cases where child protective services are involved, they favor family reunification. Why do our schools promote the complete opposite before ever having any proof that we're unsafe? I hear what others' arguments are against the parents stating that we need these policies to protect staff and to protect particular groups of people. This is and always should be about partnering with parents for the kids.
Anders Lundberg.
Good evening. My name is Anders Lundberg. I'm the parent of 3 Chico Unified students, and I'm here to voice serious concerns regarding any district policies that hinder parents' ability to support, care for, and nurture their children. It's my strong conviction that the district policy to withhold information from parents regarding a child's choice to identify as transgender is one such policy. All children wrestle with questions in their formative years. As children navigate the challenges of everyday life, parents are meant to be their primary source of support. All other institutions, including schools, will always be secondary to parents in this role. For the school system to enact a policy like this, which infringes on a parent's ability to remain informed of any and all matters related to the well-being of their child, especially children aged 11 and younger, is extremely concerning. It treats parents as part of the problem rather than leveraging parents as an integral part of the solution, just as they are an integral part of their children's lives. I understand the intent behind this policy may be to protect children whose parents would not support their decision to identify as transgender, or even worse, punish them for it. My heart breaks for children who do not have caring parents to support them. However, I'm convinced that there are better options than to cut all parents out of the loop. I urge you as school board members to recognize this policy's inherent flaws and work toward a better solution. Don't merely settle for legal interpretations that indicate the current policies are within the guidance. Get creative. Find a better way to protect students who are at risk while equipping parents to support, care for, and nurture their children. We're in this together, so let's work together to support the children in our community. Thanks.
And that's the end of our speaker list. I'm sorry, I don't have record of you signing up. You spoke at the earlier comment you spoke to this topic already on an earlier comment. So with that, we actually are at the end of our public comment section. And so That has nothing to do with this. So this is what I'm gonna do. Typically, when this happens, we hear items from the floor, and when there is a person who has signed up multiple times, which does happen by mistake, then it is presumed that they are speaking towards the topic that was on the agenda item, and this time it happened so much that we just let it go. No, your name and his name were separate, and so, yes, so, I'm sorry, I'm not here to debate this audience, and it is not a debate session. I will allow Ms. Nava to come speak, and I will allow the other speaker in the front row to speak after Ms. Nava. So, and that's going to be the end of public comment. We will not hear any more people.
Households and schools, as two important pillars in a child's life, should be a partnership predicated upon the understanding that parents are the ultimate authority on raising our children and that schools are to provide our kids with a basic education. The school district needs to immediately desist from social engineering in our schools, discontinuing the social emotional learning, critical race theory, and diversity, equity, inclusion curriculum, and disallow campus clubs who keep secrets from parents, as you do, about the health, education, and welfare of our children, and get back to providing basic learning starting with ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. You are not expert psychiatrists, and what you can do can inflict permanent damage on our kids. However, you are the experts in basic education. I attended Citrus and received instruction simulated in some historic events which left a lasting impression on us students. We proudly said the Pledge of Allegiance daily, and back then God wasn't a dirty word and Satan wasn't celebrated. We didn't overthink things. We had friends of all colors, and if you didn't believe what others believe, you didn't feel threatened by those who did. Our school system worked and parents' rights were respected. There's ample empirical data that children's brains are not fully formed until age 25. One study by the National Institutes of Health found that the region of the brain that inhibits risky behavior does not fully form until age 25. There are good reasons kids aren't allowed to make important decisions until they're older. Now our two important pillars are crumbling. The parental role has been usurped by governmental assumption that they have the right to parent our kids. Unfortunately, our school board embraces this viewpoint and takes guidance from the state linked to AB 1266 and erroneously interprets it as law you say must be followed, and you think it is acceptable to keep secrets from parents about our children. If it becomes law, you should make this a sanctuary district. National news featured accusations our school district keeps secrets from parents. A nonprofit, Stonewall Alliance, runs a club that allegedly meets at schools and hands out breast binders to little girls who supposedly identify as non-binary and male, and this was done without parental knowledge. If children's brains aren't fully formed, how's this okay when it could change their minds later? Children go through wanting to be different things or attracted to different people growing up. With hormones surging, they can be confused about their feelings. Sometimes they end up being none of those things or aren't attracted to who they thought they were, and sometimes they do, and that's okay. What is not okay is administrators making staff keep secrets from parents. Again, discontinue SEL, CRT, and DEI, and get back to teaching the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and beyond. You non-experts do not need to keep secrets because you perceive sharing could result in abuse because of assumptions you make about parental reactions. Since when did parents become the enemy or automatically ascribed as ignorant or intolerant? You are all mandated reporters, so if you suspect abuse, report it. Otherwise, trust that parents will love, protect, and care for our children, and as for these children, just let them be kids. Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak.
We'll hear our last speaker.
Hello, my name's Connor Wenzel, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm going to be very clear and open. I am a transgender male. I've transitioned for 10 years. I volunteer at Stonewall Alliance. I never get paid for anything. I work with Aaron and Julie. We present. The biggest thing, I hear truths all through this. The biggest thing that people, I think, are misunderstanding is that this is the student's choice. And so children are not identifying as transgender because it's what the kids at school are doing or because there are adults telling them to. It's a difficult struggle, I can tell you personally, and I did it as an adult. Youth that are navigating a gender identity that does not align with the sex they are assigned at birth have most likely been thinking about it for years before they were able to tell anybody else. Cedars-Sinai just did a report that stated that trans individuals generally started identifying at 7 years of age. I've also heard of people, studies doing where they said that they, anywhere from 7 to 20 years of age, that they held that within themselves. If that person, when they finally tell somebody, if that person is not their parents, there's usually a reason why. The person they share with is someone that they feel safe around. Remember, a person, especially a child, does not want to share their secret if they think that person won't support them, negate their experience, or possibly harm them. No matter if that's true or not, no matter the role in their life. If the policy is taken away, you take away the ability of that child to have a safe person, for the school to be a safe place for them, where they spend a lot of time. You take away the ability for that student to better engage and be present in the classroom because they are more comfortable with themselves. With over half of the trans and non-binary youth reporting not feeling supported at home, they need that support at school. To have the space, the people, the policies at school where they feel supported and safe, like Chico Unified has been working so hard to do. It's so very important. You are literally saving lives. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that parents should not be involved. We all encourage parents to be involved when we do the training. Gender identity is something about your inner self. Nobody can tell you what's going on. You have to be able to do that to people that you feel safe and comfortable. Please, I support you continuing with what's going on. And remember, this is all about the child's perception, not what the school is trying to do or not do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes our public comment session. And at this time, I'm going to ask for motions, and I'm actually going to move to table action until we've had sufficient guidance for legal counsel. I am making a motion to table action until we've had sufficient guidance from legal counsel.
I'm going to second that with the additional comment that I would also like to get more public comment. I heard from several people that they were not aware of this item and they would like to be heard as well. So I think tabling this while having the discussion is a great place to start, that we need to think about this a lot more as we work to create a policy which both protects students and makes sure parents are a valued member of any conversations that are happening.
I don't agree with that. While I've heard a lot of sense in a lot of the comments that have been made on all sides, and I think that they all have merit, I think that it's time for us to take a proactive role and provide leadership in what is clearly a chaotic environment in California. And we've got unidentified people at the California Department of Education making mealy-mouthed statements that they want us to follow. But the takeaway of it is that they want us to keep parents in the dark. I'm sure that I don't want to keep parents in the dark about gender transitions that may or may not be going on. And I would like to dispel any impression that we have some sort of consensus up here that school staff should be keeping responsible parents in the dark. So I would like to make the following motion. I think that
Point of order. Point of order. Mm-hmm. We are in the middle of a different motion. After that motion is voted on, you can make your own.
Right.
So you're going to shut down conversation?
No, I'm going to use
so that
the
I can't make a
we
motion, so that you can't be on record supporting this stuff.
So we have a process here. You know this, and I know that you're just grandstanding because you've been here for years now. There's a motion on the table. We will vote on that motion. Then any other member will have a chance to make another motion.
We are in the middle of discussion on one motion.
So if we table it successfully, if you table it successfully, will I then be able to make a motion that will go to vote, or will it be agenda item over at that point?
It's if we we
So-
vote to table it, it will be tabled to another.
That's what I
meeting.
thought, and that's what I'm complaining about. Because I'm a big boy, I'm a leader, I've been elected to be a leader in the school district.
Have you, though?
As have we
You know?
all. As have we all. Are there other members who would like to make a comment on this motion?
Has
We have-
member
we have a second.
Landau's motion to table been seconded?
No, it was member
That-
Dahl, it
I
was
do
the
consider that a
president.
friendly amendment to, I mean, I don't think it's really an amendment, just a
No.
caveat that
Yeah.
it's to allow for more, it's more of a
Yes, I was
discussion item.
seconding your motion, is
Okay.
my understanding.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was there a time frame for the tabling?
It is until we've had sufficient guidance from legal counsel.
So, like 2 weeks, a month?
We don't know when we will be able to bring this back forward according to our legal counsel.
I move that language be added to CUSD Board Policy Number 5145.3 to include language stating, CUSD staff shall inform a student's parents of any proposed or effective change to that student's gender identity or pronouns unless the student is at least 18 years of age, the student is a ward of the state, or there exists a clear and
Point of
compelling
order,
reason
Madam
not to
Chairman.
share the
I hear
information with parents.
So I'm going to move the vote on the motion that's on the table.
Okay.
I'll start with myself. I'm going to vote aye. We can go down the line this way.
Then I can what?
We're voting. I moved to the vote.
Yeah.
We're voting. I voted aye on the motion that's on the table, which is to
Okay.
table action until we've
I'm
had
ready
sufficient
to vote.
guidance. Thank you.
Oh, Robinson, aye on tabling the motion. I mean, tabling the agenda item.
On tabling action. Tabling action.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Conkin?
Wow, this is hard. I believe that there's a lot of work that needs to happen and that we need to make a lot of changes. That would include transparency and parent involvement, and lots of change needs to happen, but I'm willing to seek legal counsel and allow some time, so I abstain on this. So,
Member Lando?
Lando, aye.
Tennis, nay.
All right. It passes. Okay, we're moving on to item 10. Item 10 is a recess from the regular board meeting. And during the recess, we will be convening the annual meeting of the Board of Directors of the Chico Unified School Financing Corporation. Give it a few minutes.